Hi, I'm Brenda Yoho, and welcome to Solution Saturday. I again want to talk a little bit more about my book, Lead with Two Rules, Feeling Good and Feeling Safe. I had the opportunity this past week to have a visitor, and they're a school board member, and they wanted to talk to me a little bit about their discipline they've had to deal with in the school. And I've had a couple other people that I've talked with during this week that's had some discipline issues as well. And all of the schools throughout our country have discipline rules and policies in place. And we used to hear a lot about zero tolerance, that if you do something that's very violent, that you're automatically expelled from school. It's zero tolerance. I'm not so sure that that's been practiced anymore. I'm not a big fan of zero tolerance. Because I think that just instantly damages the child for a long time. And so I'm not a big fan of zero tolerance. I do think kids need to be held responsible and accountable for their actions. Don't get me wrong. I am. I have high expectations, and my former students will all tell you that. But I don't want to ruin a child's life or education process because of a mistake or a reaction that they've had. I don't want to endanger the lives of other kids either. But listening to individuals this week, I shared with them, my opinion. And it's my professional opinion. And I gave it. So after listening to the scenario, here's the scenario. Two girls early in the morning get into a fight in a hallway. Other kids are around. No adult intervenes, and they get into this horrific fight. Somebody videotapes it, I believe. Same kind of scenario that we saw, and I made a video about this, and I watched as it went viral. And the other young lady from East St. Louis was hospitalized. That's not the case in this situation. Nobody was hospitalized to my knowledge. But the police were called. They were taken away in handcuffs, I think, or restrained. They appear at the board up for expulsion. And in our area, when children are expelled from school, we do have an alternative program for kids to go to. And, sometimes that's great. In fact, I often, as a principal, I liked the alternative program for kids because there were so many more things that were made available to kids. They have a lot of extra things. They can get some mental health help. They can get some anger management. There's lots of different things that can be helpful to them. But I went with this to the school board member. I did this. I said, so, did anybody ask what the problem was that the girls were fighting about? No. Didn't have an answer about that. I said, okay, so all the kids that were around, some of them were this girl's friend, some of them were this girl's friend. The problem still exists. So what's being done now to resolve the problem? Because the problem will come back up again if nobody is talking about it and addressing it. So we'll have another fight, possibly, because we have to address that. And if there was no adults around when this happened and nobody came out to immediately do anything, that's a problem. What I see is a problem in the system and the steps that we're taking to help kids understand that when you have a problem, that you need to seek someone who can help you find a better solution. So we have all of these kids who've not talked about the problem, and we haven't resolved the problem with a solution. And my question is, did anybody ask the kids involved in this if they even have a trusted adult in the school that they can go to. Because that's important. That's important to know. And so my next question is, do we ask the kids at the schools, do they feel safe? Do we know what safety is? What does safety mean to them? So in the book, I have on page 36, becoming aware of how to be safe. And, the two-rule philosophy does not replace the practices schools have about safety. Every school has policies and procedures for multiple situations, including storms, fires, riding the bus, and how students should act at school. The two rules help students understand the thought process that goes into these practices and the importance of always thinking about safety. So if we could start teaching these practices and doing these steps, I don't know that these girls would be facing expulsion or causing damage to each other. And I would really like to know what the problem was and if they felt like this was the best solution they had to resolve it. I want students to think about safety as a very personal topic that is about their own welfare instead of thinking about it as an annoying category in a student handbook. Because those rules that are in the handbook and the rules that we have in general for our lives as adults, they're all there for a purpose. They're all there to help us in feeling safe. And knowing that if we break one of those, we're accountable and responsible for breaking them. And I think as a society, we need to really look at that and really think about that. Do we all feel safe right now? And I want people to think about that. It goes on to talk a little bit more about safety, but the importance of safety is lots of things. I don't want kids to feel like they don't have somewhere to go and to talk to someone about not feeling good or safe at school. I don't want them to go in and feel like they have to face bullying or they have to face having to fight someone when they don't want to. We don't have to cause harm to someone else. It doesn't solve a problem. It doesn't solve a problem. That's not the solution. I was talking to a man from South Carolina, I believe, and he was telling me that he has a friend that's a substitute teacher, and 6 and 7-year-olds are acting with all this violence and anger. Where's this coming from? We have to stop and ask ourselves, where is all of this coming from? Why do we have all of this anger and all of this negativity? And we need to scale it back down. And the best way to do that is to implement 2 rules. It really is. And to start taking some steps to really turn things around. This changes our approach. It's not one more thing. I've said that before. It's a way of being. It's what we do when we come to school. It's what we do when we're at home. It's what we do when we're in society, in our community. This is what we do. We stop and we think before we say and before we do, because we know it's our responsibility to make sure that we are saying things that make us feel good and others feel good. And we're doing things that make us feel safe and others to feel safe. And if we're not, then there's a problem in need of a solution. And if we see people doing things that aren't making us feel good or safe, it's a problem in need of a solution. And we need a trusted adult to help us with finding it. So our problem for today is this. Our problem is the lack of safety for others and ourselves. And our solution is lead with 2 rules, feeling good and feeling safe, and practicing the 4 simple questions to ask to identify the problems we have and to find a trusted adult to talk it over with to find the best solution. That's for my pre-K 12th grade students. For my adults, it is taking a breath, taking the time to reflect and to understand that we need to take time to respond, not react with emotions. Self-regulation is what has to be put into practice. We have to self-regulate as a community, as a household, as a society. We have to. We also have to understand that I made all of the rules that we have that are all about feeling good and feeling safe. They all have to be followed. And we have to understand we have the power of choice. But if we choose to be part of the problem, the solution is we chose the consequences, and we are responsible and accountable for the actions and the things we've said and done. There has to be accountability and responsibility for the rules that we break, because the rules that we break are about feeling good and feeling safe. Thank you. I'll see you next Saturday.